on, Andrew. All right, Chad, I'm gonna go grab some foodies.
Thank you so much for having us. You're over here, Mr. President. Thank you. Kaylee.
Okay.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you taking the time.
Good.
And we appreciate your commitment to answer our questions.
Sure.
Really appreciate that. Over the years, I've heard you talk about your adherence to a philosophy called positive thinking. This is the mantra that if you believe something, if you visualize it, then it will happen.
To an extent, I also think in terms of the downside.
Right.
I've been given a lot of credit for positive thinking, but I also think about downside, because only a fool doesn't.
To what extent do you think that that positive thinking mindset is suitable to handling the worst pandemic that we've seen in a century?
I think you have to have a positive outlook. Otherwise, you would have nothing without a positive outlook. I think we've done an incredible job between the ventilators and stopping very infected people from China coming in, meaning putting the ban on China, which frankly nobody wanted me to do. Practically nobody, because it was very early in January. Then putting the ban on Europe, not an easy thing to do. When you put a ban on Europe, that's a big thing. We would have probably lost hundreds of thousands of lives more had I not done that. And all of the experts, every one of them, not one of them wanted to do it. They thought it was too severe. 3 months later, they're all saying, I'm glad you did it.
The criticism of you that is most prominent is about the communication. It's the public health experts saying that it needs to be based in reality. And they're saying that the wishful thinking and the salesmanship is just not suitable at a time when a pandemic has killed 145,000 Americans. And it's that I understand what you're saying, that people need to hear positive thinking. But, you know, for the past 5 months, it's been the virus is totally under control. And the cases have been going up and the deaths have been going up.
Look.
But you've been saying it's under control.
Nobody knew what this thing was all about. This has never happened before. 1917, but it was a totally different, it was a flu in that case, okay? But other than 1917, there's never been anything like this. And by the way, if you watch the fake news on television, they don't even talk about it. But you know, there are 188 other countries right now that are suffering, some proportionately far greater than we are, okay? As bad as we are.
Very few.
Some proportionately greater than we are. Right now, Spain is having a big spike. There are tremendous problems in the world. You look at Moscow, look at what's going on with Moscow. Look at Brazil, look at these countries, what's going on. This was sent to us by China, one way or the other, and we're never gonna forget it. Believe me, we're never gonna forget it. And we were beating China at every single point. We were beating them on trade. We were making progress like nobody's ever made progress. They had, before the pandemic, they had the worst year, Jonathan, that they've had in 67 years. You know that, with the tariffs and everything else I did. We were taking in billions of dollars. I was giving some of it to the farmers. The farmers were doing well because they were targeting the farmers. I was targeting China. We were doing good. Then all of a sudden the game changed and I had to close it down. I closed down the greatest economy ever in history. And then I closed it down. And now we're opening it. And we say, by the way, by closing it down, we saved millions of lives. If we would have gone the herd, and we knew very little about the disease, if we would have gone herd, we would have lost millions of people, millions of people. One person's too much. We're at 140,000 people. One person is too much. We're at 140. We would have lost millions of people. And those people that really understand it, they said it's incredible the job that we've done.
Foodies tonight is going to be my vegan noodle frozen foodie meal that I love so much. Yes. Love it. So what's going on, Chad? How is it so far? We're about 5 minutes in. How awful is it from, like, I don't know, like on a scale of 1 to 10? Our president's looking pretty damn orange. That's all I know. That's all I see thus far. Pretty pretty damn orange. Oranger than usual, maybe. Perhaps. I don't like how this mean man is speaking to our president. Listen, I gotta tell you something about your sensibilities. If you do not like the way that this mean man is speaking to our president, who's pushing back against the hundreds of thousands of people who have died due to COVID-19 related deaths and the failure to manage COVID-19 properly with any federal mandate that will keep people safe and socially distanced and sheltered in place and forced to wear a mask every time they leave. That is not being mean. That is trying to hold a president responsible for their mismanagement, their willful neglect, and their malpractice as a president to let this many people die. And it's not because he didn't know the risks and the projections, because he has a team of some of the most highly qualified public health officials and the #1 infectious disease specialist in the world on his COVID-19 task force, telling him, we are not going in the right direction. We are not mitigating the spread of COVID-19. We are not flattening the curve. We are failing. And his response was to tarnish their reputation on camera so that they didn't make him look bad. If that is being mean to the president, then I don't know what to tell you. That there Australia is disrespecting the flag by asking legitimate questions. Trump 2020. Thank you, Aníbal Mario, for that. Oh. But honestly, like, how many people would watch this? How many members of the Trump base would watch this and think just that? Be like, this son of a bitch with all them gotcha questions, just trying to make my president look bad.
And again, I bring it up.
Who says that?
The ban banning China from coming in.
But it was already in here by
What's
the time.
that?
It was already here. Like, by the time you banned China, it
It was
came in
there,
through
but
Europe.
nobody knew the extent. Nobody knew how contagious
I'm
it was.
not. But the
You
question
know
is,
that?
Mr. President,
Maybe China knew.
by June, we knew things were bad. And, you know, the last time I was with you was the day before your Tulsa rally in the Oval. And, you know, you were saying big, huge crowd, it was indoors.
By the way,
these people, they
it
listen
was
to
a
you.
big, excuse me, John.
Yeah.
We had a 19,000 seat stadium. First of all, we had 12,000 people, not 6,000, which you reported and other people reported. But you couldn't even get in. It was like an armed camp.
Why would you have wanted
that?
that?
120 Black Lives Matter people.
I understand, but why would you have wanted a huge
Tulsa,
crowd?
excuse me, wait. And Tulsa, well, because that area was a very good area at the time. It was an area that was
Cases
pretty
were
much
stopped.
over. After, a month later, it started going up. That's a month later. But Tulsa was a very good, Oklahoma was doing very well as a state. It was almost free. It spiked a month later, month and a half, 2 months later, but it was a good area. We had a tremendous crowd. We had tremendous response. You couldn't even, it was like an armed camp. You couldn't even get through. You couldn't get anybody in.
But I'm
we
talking
had
about
12,000 people. It was incorrectly reported. The other thing we had that nobody wants to talk about, so Fox broadcast it. It was the highest rating in the history of Fox television, Saturday night. It was the highest rating.
Mr. President.
My speech, well, wait a minute, you're saying something.
Yeah.
That speech was the highest rated speech in the history of Fox television on Saturday night. And nobody says that.
I think you misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing your ability to draw a crowd. Are you
Well,
kidding me?
I'm
I've
just
covered you
saying
for 5 years. You draw massive
I'm just
crowds, you
saying
get huge
this.
ratings. I'm asking about the
At
public
the time,
health.
and I canceled another one. I had to cancel it.
Right.
We were gonna have a great crowd in New Hampshire, and I canceled it for the same reason.
But here's the question. You know, I've covered you for a long time. I've gone to your rallies. I've talked to your people. They love you. They listen to you. They listen to every word you say. They hang on your every word. They don't listen to me or the media or Fauci. They think we're fake news. They want to get their advice from you. And so when they hear you say everything's under control, don't worry about wearing masks, I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah, under the
It's giving them a false
circumstances,
sense of
right
security.
now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. It's under control as much as you can control it. This is a horrible plague that beset us.
You really think this is as much as we can control?
Well,
1,000 deaths a day?
I'd like to know if somebody, first of all, we have done a great job. We've gotten the governors everything they needed. They didn't do their job. Many of them didn't, and some of them did. Someday we'll sit down, we'll talk about the successful ones, the good ones. Look at that smile. The good ones and the bad. We had good and bad. And we had a lot in the middle, but we had some incredible governors. I could tell you right now who the great ones are and who the not so great ones are, but the governors do it. We gave them massive amounts of material.
Mr. President, you changed your message this week in terms of you cancelled the Jacksonville Convention, you said wear a mask, you're saying, you know, that it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's not something you like to say, I know you said that. The big question...
Not get worse like the original flow, you understand that. But
well, I hope not, it's 1,000.
Now if you look, Arizona's going down.
If I can just finish my question.
Texas is going down and Florida's going down.
The question is, are you going to, even some of your own aides wonder whether you would stick to that message until election day, whether in a week or two you won't say, right, we've got to reopen again, we can't do this stuff anymore, that you'll get bored of talking about the virus and go back to that sort of cheerleading?
I never get bored of talking about this. It's too big a thing. And again,
so will you stick to that message?
It could have been stopped by China. It should have been stopped by China, and it wasn't.
But now it's here.
We have
You're the
it
president.
here.
Like going forward, you know that Trump is only going to do interviews if he gets the questions ahead of time, right? Like I feel like this is going to be the result of that. Trump does not like to be thrown in a frenzy, and he doesn't like these difficult questions. And I feel like as a result, any interviews going forward will have to be questions will have to be approved ahead of time. You realize this is fake, right? Is it? Hold on. Is it? Rashida got a 30-point lead? Hell yeah. Wait, this is fake? Hold on. What do you mean? Plus he's fake? How is this fake? Lean back, relax, and have some dignity? Well, obviously I think that he's probably leaning forward because he's not comfortable. He's not comfortable with these hard-hitting questions. He knows that he's in the wrong. You can tell he's panicking. You can tell by his body language, right? But can we take a second to admire one of our favorite squad members, Rashida Tlaib, for her 30-point lead right now? Here we were worried that somehow she was going to have an issue with re-election. The special election in 2018. You could have said that he has no dignity. You weren't worried? All right, well, now we know. Lewis999, thank you for the follow. Australia is a hoax? Tlaib got a bag made of stone. Hell yeah, she does. Hell yeah, she does. Listen, Rashida Tlaib is so based that she refused to outright endorse Joe Biden and instead said that she endorses Trump's loss, but not necessarily Joe Biden. That's how fucking based Rashida Tlaib is. I mean, you have to answer the question, you know? You have to answer the question to a certain extent, but going with being more in favor of Trump losing than throwing your support behind Joe Biden as a candidate was a bold and brilliant move, if I do say so myself. All right.
And I think I'm very consistent. No, this is a very serious thing. Do you think we have 140,000 people at this moment? This is a very, very serious situation. And what you have to do is handle it the best it can be handled. And again, I'm working with the governors. I got them tremendous amounts of equipment that they would have never gotten. Jonathan, they wouldn't have equipment now if I didn't get it.
When can you commit, by what date, that every American will have access to the same day testing that you get here in the White House?
Well, we have great testing. We're doing, and
by what date?
People do. Let me explain. the testing. We have tested more people than any other country, than all of Europe put together ×2. We have tested more people than anybody ever thought of. India has 1.4 billion people. They've done 11 million tests. We've done 55, it'll be close to 60 million tests. And, you know, there are those that say, you can test too much. You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books?
What testing does
I'm
is
sorry,
it shows, wait a minute,
who
John,
said-
let me explain. What testing does, it shows cases. It shows where there may be cases. Other countries test, you know when they test? They test when somebody's sick. That's when they test.
I shouldn't
And
laugh
I'm not
because
saying
this is
they're
like, this is kind of embarrassing to be an American and to see like this is the guy who's in charge of coronavirus. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I will say that. I shouldn't laugh because it is embarrassing because so many people have died. For that reason, I feel bad. I feel bad because people have literally died because of this lunatic's incompetence to do anything right. Anything right. But the fact that he just can't even answer simple questions. And he has found himself in a position where he gets to lie and bullshit and make shit up over and over and over whenever he is met with even the tiniest of pushbacks. With regard to providing research or providing your supporting evidence to your claims instead of just saying books is something that he's clearly not used to. Because he has found himself in an ecosystem of people just saying whatever comes out of Trump's mouth is okay, and yes, we agree, and never pushing back, and never trying to push for, you know, the truth, or to find a better way to address the looming crisis that we have right now with COVID-related everything. It's just been, oh yeah, Trump, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're not fucking up. No fuck ups here. And so because there's no one who has tested him in his position in any reasonable capacity, whenever he sits down for a fucking AXIOS interview with HBO, this is how hard he shits the bed. It's embarrassing, to be honest. But again, you just see him like squirm and it's like, well, what did you expect? How much longer of a charade could you have kept this up with or whatever? It gets crazier, believe it or not. The last third of the interview, strap in for a ride. All right, we're gonna buckle the fuck up, I suppose. We're only 10 minutes in. We're only a third into this. Less than.
right
Jesus.
or wrong. Nobody's done it like we've done it. We've gotten absolutely no credit for it, but we've come up with so many different tests. The only thing that we have now is some people have to wait longer than we'd like them to.
It's a big problem.
We want point to point. We want to have a 5-minute to a 15-minute
Right.
test.
When do you think-
and like many others,
Every
and from what
American.
I understand, we're close to 50% where it's point to point test. We are making thousands of instruments, thousands of tests right now, tens of thousands that can be distributed to.
Another thing to keep in mind whenever we're watching this interview, he's not so stupid that he knows to provide a date because he's not going to implicate himself. He knows that he can't give a date in this interview because if he doesn't meet the deadline, then that's going to look bad on him. And this is the way that he is. He's not a dumbass. He knows how to respond to a certain extent in a way that won't incriminate himself anymore. And he will dance around a question like he's doing now because he knows not to put himself in a pickle. He knows. This is just like one of the ways that he knows how to keep his good name and his good reputation to a certain degree with his base, right? With his base. So then at least with a half-assed answer like this, you can come back and say, well, Donald Trump, you said that by this date you would have every single testing facility equipped with single-day tests. What happened? At least like that's not going to be held over his head. He has good PR. Yeah, and he knows how to promote himself in a way. He's very good at self-promotion, is pretty much what I'm trying to get to. That's what I mean.
Various parts of the country. But you have to understand, and we've even sent some of them to other countries where they had a big problem. Jonathan, almost 50%, in fact, I think the number might be over, is immediate testing. The other's tough. You take a test, you have to send it to a laboratory. Let's say that takes a day. Let's say it's a day.
It's difficult.
So it's 3 or 4 or 5 days. There's nothing you do about that.
But when do you think we'll have it for everyone?
I think that you will have that relatively soon. I mean, again,
what does that mean?
You already have half.
Yeah.
I would much rather get back to you because I don't want to have you in 1 month. I didn't make it. I missed it by a day. And it's a headline.
Mr. President, I want to talk about the federal intervention.
See what I mean, chat? He knows. He knows. He gets it. He sees the gotcha questions. He understands whenever he's in a gotcha moment. Can you send someone over to dunk on our PM?
Excuse me, one thing I would say about testing. Because we test so much, we show cases. So we show many, many cases. We show tremendous number of, I know you're smiling when I say that.
No, but come on, I mean, I've heard you say this,
Other countries don't test like we do, so they don't show cases.
Just a couple of points on that. I wasn't going to continue on the testing, but you said it. So we're testing so much because it's spread so far in America.
We're testing so much because we had the ability to test.
Okay.
Because we came up with tests.
But South Korea...
Jonathan, we didn't even have a test. When I took over, we didn't even have a test. Now, in all fairness,
why would you have a test?
There was no test.
The virus
for
didn't
this.
exist. How would you have a test?
I was going to say, there was no test for this new. We didn't have a test because there was no test.
Of course.
In a very short order, we got one test, we got another test.
It was broken, the first one.
Many of those tests are now obsolete because we've, it's called science, and all of a sudden something's better. But because we tested so many people, 55, 60 million people very soon, we...
Damn, thank you, Gert. Thank you for the 6 months. Appreciate it. That's poogies.
Get cases. You test, some kid has even just a little runny nose, it's a case. And then you report many cases. So we look like we have more cases than massive countries like China, which, by the way, doesn't report, as you know.
Well, I don't put any stock in China's figures.
The point is, because we are so much better at testing than any other country in the world, we show more cases.
The figure I look at is death. And death is going up now.
Okay,
and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death...
Yeah, it's going up again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death...
It's started to go up again.
One. Well, right here, the United States is lowest.
My question being, he likes to really harp on the fact that, maybe there has been better, more accessible testing in the recent months, and he uses India as his example relative to United States per population, 1.4 billion in India, 11 million cases, whereas here in the United States, we have tested far more and we have a smaller population, and now we're going on to the death toll. And I'd be interested to know where India's falling right now with total number of deaths to really bring this point home, in that just because we have been providing a lot more tests because the ample spreading of this disease and the need to test early and often is one thing, but failure for those to test in time, or failure to not test at all and immediately go straight from not being tested to, oh, okay, I'm dying and now I'm dead, which has a lot to do with the lack of healthcare infrastructure in this country, is something that I'm interested to hear about. 38K deaths in India. Isn't that interesting, chat? India, with a 1.4 billion population, even though there is a lower number of tests, there's a significantly lower number of deaths, which means that we could deduce that there are policies in place that are keeping people safe and social distance, and so there's not a need to test as many people because there aren't as high of a number of contracted cases in India, albeit the size of the population is considerably larger compared to that of the United States. So again, whenever we're talking about the total number of deaths in this country that is coupled with a higher number of tests, we can make a logical conclusion here that it could be due to a lack of failed public policy that many other countries have adopted and implemented that has lowered the total number of contracted cases. Where's the fast forward button? But India is March. All right, let's see what's up.
In numerous categories, we're lower than the world.
Lower than
we're
the
lower
world?
than
What does that
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
you can't do that. You have
Why
to go.
can't I do that?
You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why
are
not
dead.
as a proportion of
When we have
population?
somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that
Yeah.
has where there's a case.
Oh, okay.
The people that live
Sure.
from
Oh.
those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population
No,
versus
because you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea,
If-
for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy
you don't
compared to...
know that.
I do. It's
You
on the...
don't know
it's-
that.
You think they're faking their statistics, South Korea?
I
An
won't get
advanced
into
country?
that because they have a very good relationship
Yeah.
with the country, but you don't know that. And they have spikes. Look, here's
Germany,
one.
low,
Here's
9,000.
one. Here's one right here, United States. You take
Anyway.
the number of cases.
Okay.
Now look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Last, I don't know
We
what
have
we're
the
first
best.
in. As a what?
Take a look.
Okay.
Again, it's
I'll just-
cases.
Okay.
And we have cases because
mean,
of the testing.
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases, it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but...
If you take a look at this other chart,
I'm kind of lost. Kind of lost here. He said we're the best. I mean, I obviously the whole point of putting together these finagled charts is to try to make it seem like the United States death count isn't as bad as it seems by looking at the total proportion of deaths compared to cases. But in all reality, whenever you look at total number of deaths as a proportion to the population of the United States, then that's where you see that there is a discrepancy in our numbers compared to other developed nations that have better management capacity and lower death counts as a result. Better management and capacity to handle COVID cases. Sorry. And that makes all of the difference in the world. And again, you can tell that like Donald Trump is not in a position to defend his mismanagement. And instead of just kind of, I don't know, no president's gonna be like, yeah, you know what, I fucked up. I gotta start over. Can we start over? And instead, they're gonna try to find any way to manipulate data in a way that makes it seem like the cases aren't that bad or the total death counts are justified or reasonable. If you skew the data in another way, then we're not so bad. And that's clearly what he's attempting to do. And right before that, he said the only reason we have so many cases is because we test so much. And then he tries to use that number to say deaths aren't bad. It's just a mess. Again, it goes back to the fact that the common denominator in most developed countries with a lower death counts than the United States are national mandates and ordinances and policies and paying their people to stay at home and stay safe. That's the common denominator. In addition to better, more accessible treatment facilities. Treatment facility, not testing facilities, treatment. So not only do you test and for free in other countries, you're also treated for free in other countries, which also plays a huge role as to why there are lower death counts in other countries and higher death counts in the United States. So let's say that you do have the capacity to get to a free testing facility. You test positive. You cannot afford to be treated for COVID. You die. So in addition to mismanagement, because healthcare is not afforded to us as a human right in this country, then we are burdened with the knowledge that we have COVID-19 and might just have to suffer until we eventually succumb to the disease altogether. But we will never know. Or the testing that positive is way higher is actually lower. Or the testing that's positive is way higher is actually lower. You should have adjusted the number of deaths by considering the number of test population for each country to avoid the test way more. I don't think that Donald Trump is smart enough to be able to win this argument. I mean, I think that it's really hard to dance around the fact that he is fucked up, and he is willing to try to find any way to make him seem like he has not completely flopped on the issue of saving people from COVID-19. The whole thing about we have administered more tests only goes so far whenever you're trying to address how you have at least attempted to provide some safety by at least getting people in testing facilities to know that whether or not they have the disease, and then they can social distance if necessary. The whole issue is that without having any kind of precautionary policy in place and mitigation strategies in place and federal mandates, again, it goes back to like making everybody social distance, making everybody wear a mask, paying everybody to stay at home unless you are an essential worker and you have to be out, and then, you know, pay them hazard pay. Without doing all of these, without taking all of these risk management strategies and not applying them in the form of public policy, of course it's not going to matter how many tests you have. You're just proving that you've had to administer so many tests because there aren't any public policy mandates that require people to practice social distancing and all of the other things that help to eliminate the spread of the disease. You shouldn't pride yourself on how many people you have tested. You're just kind of admitting that the fact that you have not enforced a federal mandate for people to practice safety procedures, then that has led to more people going to testing facilities whenever they start to maybe show symptoms. A clinic I know had been testing a lot but doing it incorrectly, lots of inconclusive and false tests. Imagine how many false results across the country. I would imagine that there's actually a lot of tests that have not been administered or they haven't been analyzed properly. If it is ultimately to drive down the total number of positive cases, then I'd say that that's happening quite frequently, and I would go so far to even say that it's not an accident that we have these faulty tests coming back with false positives or false negatives. False negatives. All right. And you know what? We're not even at the spiciest part of this interview, it turns out.
Look, this is our testing, I believe. This is the testing, yeah.
Yeah, we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more tests, we have more cases. In other words, we test more, we have... Now take a look. The top one, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. The top, Jonathan.
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific. You deserve to be praised for testing, but they're all going up.
You know, they very rarely talk...
60,000 Americans are in hospital.
If you watch the news or read the papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Well, you look at death.
Up.
Death is way down from where it was.
It's 1,000 a day. It was 2,500. It went down to 500. Now it's going up again.
Excuse me, where it was is much higher than where it is right now.
It went down and it went up again.
But now it's going down again. It's going down in Arizona, it's going down in Florida,
Nationally,
it's going down in Texas. Take a look at this. These are the tests.
It's going down in Florida?
Yeah, it leveled out and it's going down. That's my report as of yesterday.
Anyway, Mr. President, if I could change subject.
It is going down in Arizona.
Arizona it is. Texas has big problems.
And it spiked and it's now going down in Florida. It's evened out and going down in Florida.
I'll have to see those.
But you have to look at this. This is the number of tests compared to the rest of the world.
I don't deny your figures. You've done more tests by far than the rest of them. I don't deny that.
Because we've done more tests, we have more cases.
you
You
have
can take
more
it back.
advantage.
Check it out. at
Mr.
your-
President, different subject. It's been widely reported that the US has intelligence indicating that Russia paid bounties or offered to pay bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers. You had a phone call with Vladimir Putin on July 23rd. Did you bring up this issue?
No, that was a phone call to discuss other things, and frankly, that's an issue that
And let me just say this. And let me just say this real quick. Just because there are some states that were a hotspot for COVID-19 related cases and deaths, just because there has been some decrease in the total number of cases, ultimately across the board, the number of cases and deaths have gone up. So this goes back to allowing the states to make the decisions themselves that also could contribute to the total number of cases that have increased at a national level. Don't you think that perhaps it seems likely that if there was, across the board standards that applied to everyone, then we would see a decrease in cases across the board? Maybe.
many people said was fake news.
Who said it was
a
fake
false-
news?
I think a lot of people, if you look at some of the wonderful folks from the Bush administration, some of them, not any friends of mine, were saying that it's a fake issue. But a lot of people said it's a fake issue.
There was
Well,
dispute
we had a
within the
call,
intelligence.
talking about nuclear proliferation, which
Right.
is a very big subject, where they would like to do something and so would I. We discussed numerous things. We did not discuss that, no.
And you've never discussed it with him.
I have never discussed it with them, no. I would. I'd have no problem with it.
But you don't
But,
believe
you know,
the
it
intelligence.
never
It's because
got
you
to
don't believe the intelligence. That's why.
Everything, it's interesting. Nobody ever brings up China. They always bring Russia, Russia, Russia. If we can do something with Russia in terms of nuclear proliferation, which is a
Right.
very big problem, bigger problem than global warming, a much bigger problem than global warming in terms of the real world, that would be a great thing.
just-
No, but it,
Wait, no, no, oh no, holy shit. Okay, listen, in Trump's defense, it would take a lot less time to wipe us out with nuclear proliferation if we did go into nuclear war with Russia. But to argue that it is somehow more serious and pressing an issue than global climate change that is affecting everyone, that is happening no matter what, if we do not try to introduce mitigation, resilience, and adaptation policies and try very hard to reduce our carbon footprint around the world, then we're all going to die. And it's just a matter of time. In some ways, yeah, I guess it would be easier for the nukes to just wipe us out, but some of us aren't so lucky. And unfortunately, it's going to come in waves. And the people in coastal areas in the global south, they'll be hit the hardest. And then we'll start to really see how things take shape once we do see parts of the world that are right now habitable that will soon be uninhabitable. But again, let's try to stay on topic. Look, I just can't believe that some people are listening to this being like, yeah, you know what? Nuclear proliferation is a bigger threat to global humanity than the impending doom that we are experiencing from climate-related disasters that the scientists have been warning us about. And in fact, they have said that maybe they miscalculated and the apocalypse could be coming sooner than they thought. But again, let's focus on finding a way to play nice with Russia because, nuclear proliferation. Yeah. Yep. We should nuke hurricanes. Nice try, Noobson. We know that our president came up with that first. Give credit where credit's due, okay?
never reached my desk. You know why? Because they didn't think it was intelligence. They didn't think it was real.
It was in
They
your
didn't
written
think-
brief, though,
They
apparently.
didn't think it was worthy of. I wouldn't mind if it reached my desk. I would have done something about it. It never reached my desk because
Do you read your written brief?
I do. I
Do you?
read a lot.
Really?
I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your
I
daily intelligence
comprehend
brief?
extraordinarily well. Probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time. I read a lot. I spend a lot of time with at meetings. Usually it's once a day or at least 2 or 3 times a week intelligence.
Because this was apparently
talking
in your
about India,
right.
talking about
Right.
with the problems with China, talking about so many different elements of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The world is a very angry place. If you look all over the world, we call up, I see 22 soldiers were killed in India with China fighting over the border. It's
Sorry,
been
I needed
raging
some
for many
dessert.
decades. And they've been fighting and back and forth. I have so many briefings on so many different countries, but this one didn't reach my desk.
The reason I say this is even if you don't believe this particular piece of intelligence, and there is dispute, no doubt there is dispute in the intelligence community about it, your former, John Nicholson,
fruit, though?
former head of
Shut
forces
up.
in Afghanistan, said, and this is when he was working for you, that Russia is supplying weapons to the Taliban. Isn't that...
Shut. I've said some stupid things. Or was mandarins? Kind of. It's okay, me too. And that's all I had to say about that. That's all I had to say. That's all. He talks like my schizophrenic uncle. Which one? Trump? Did I steal it? Oh, yeah. We looked at this. It sickens me. We can talk about this at length. After, after this interview, I'm gonna do a Discord call with Leftist Click. We're gonna get an update on what's going on in Aurora, Colorado. We watched that segment yesterday from the Aurora News and police brutality. That's kind of the police brutality that occurred recently. So, all right.
that enough to challenge Putin over the
I bought it. I bought this with my own money. But thank you, Ellie Jackson.
killings of
Well, we
US
supplied
soldiers?
weapons when they were fighting Russia too. You know, when they were fighting with the Taliban in
but
Afghanistan.
It's a different era.
Well, it's a different. I'm just saying, yes.
But does that- how does that
I'm just
affect-
saying we did that too.
But how does that-
I don't know. I didn't ask Nicholson about that. He was there for a long time. Didn't have great success because he was there before me, and then ultimately I made a change.
But you surely heard that, right? I mean, it's well known in the intelligence community that they're arming the Taliban, Russia.
I don't know. When you say arming, is
Supplying
the Taliban
weapons.
paying or they?
Russia is supplying weapons and money to the Taliban.
I have heard that, but it's
Yeah.
it's never reached my desk.
I mean, he said
What?
it on the record when he was in.
Wait,
And
what?
Russia doesn't want anything to do with Afghanistan. Let me just tell you about Russia. Russia used to be a thing called the Soviet Union. Because of Afghanistan, they went bankrupt. They became Russia, just so you do understand, okay?
That's not
The
how it
last
happened
thing
at
that
all.
Russia wants to do is
Wait a
get too much involved with Afghanistan. They tried that once. It didn't work out too well.
Last question on this subject.
And by the way, we're largely out of Afghanistan, as you probably know.
Well, wanted to ask you about that. The US troop level in Afghanistan right now is roughly the same as it was when
No, you're wrong. No.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. We have to do.
Okay, are you ready?
No,
We'll be down in a very short, it's already planned.
Well, that's a different
Let me
question.
explain. We'll be down in a very short period of time to 8,000. Then we're going to be down to 4,000. We're negotiating right now. We've been there for 19 years.
I know.
19 years.
But if you just let me finish my
We'll
question.
be getting out.
I understand. Look, when you came in, it was 8,800. You boosted to 14,000, and now you're
Ooh.
back down to 8,500.
We're now.
My question
we'll
to
be
you-
at 4,000. I'll give
When?
you the exact. Very soon. Very soon.
What will be the number? Very soon? 4,000?
Very soon. Yeah.
Like how
very
soon?
I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to tell
It's
you.
big
that.
news.
What is that? That is
going down to
I think it's
4,000,
big news.
isn't it?
No, I've always said.
Well, what about election day?
We will get largely out.
On election day, how many American troops will be in Afghanistan?
Probably anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000.
I love this guy.
That's almost as many as when you came into office.
No, it's not.
8,000
We had
came
much
in.
more. We had a lot of people over there too.
8,800.
A lot of people.
troops.
And we did a good job. We wiped out ISIS.
Have you
Let me
thought
just tell
about going down to
something. Let me
zero?
just tell you what you don't say. We took out in Syria, we took out ISIS. We 100% of the caliphate. When I took over, Obama, it was totally rampant. ISIS was all over the
He's
place.
conservative? I don't
We
give a
took
shit.
them out, we captured them, we killed them. 100%, not 99%. I wanted to get out at 99.
Right.
Everyone said, oh, please, would you stay? I stayed. 99% was good, but 100% of the caliphate. We took out Soleimani. We took out al-Baghdadi.
Soleimani.
We took out people that nobody thought possible. Al-Baghdadi was the biggest terrorist of them all. They couldn't find him. I took him.
Imagine knowing all of this information about the caliphate, about Soleimani, a Baghdadi. What? But not knowing that the Russians were actually responsible for supplying armed weaponry to the Taliban. It's called, chat, plausible deniability. So you think.
Him out. Soleimani, even bigger. I took him out. I've done things that no other president's done. Fortunately, not too many. They should have never been in the Middle East. The decision to go to the Middle East and get into the Middle East was the single biggest.
I mean, not to rain on Trump's parade, but pretty much every single fucking president has been has been under obligation to uphold the imperialism that we propel all over the world, like all over. Like, I would say that every single president is kind of expected to uphold the status of a war criminal, because Commander-in-Chief, the position specifically Commander-in-Chief, being in charge of the American military, does precede you in a way that the office, the responsibility, the obligations is already there. So whenever you assume office, you're just following the orders of what is expected whenever you are in charge of the military industrial complex. So I don't even know what he's talking about. Like, I was a better war criminal than the rest of the presidents. Like, I had to make major decisions like the rest. Like, no, that comes with the territory. You're no different than any other president that has preceded you. Like, what do you even mean? Like, and plus, like, why would you even take this approach where, like, I had to deal with, it's even a bad argument, because as much as, like, I hate going down this path, like, to make it seem like you've done a better job in foreign relations or international relations than, like, any other president that hasn't been in office during, like, a world war or, like, during, like, Operation Iraqi Freedom or something like that. It's kind of silly. I mean, Donald Trump isn't even half the war criminal that George W. Bush was, let's be honest. That's a weird flex, dude. Come on. Who are you trying to fool?
Biggest mistake made in the history of our country. That's my opinion.
You told Fox News recently that you couldn't say whether you'd accept the results of the 2020 election. What does that actually look like as the sitting president? I mean, it's unprecedented. What would that actually look like?
Hillary Clinton never accepted him.
She conceded on.
She still doesn't accept him, and she got.
That's the important point.
Easily.
That's the important point. She conceded on election night. Now she grumbled about it and said all sorts of things.
Grumbled. She wrote books about it.
She wrote books.
Don't use the word grumbled.
Fine, but
she wrote books about it.
That's fine, but I'm just.
She got beaten easy.
I get it.
306 to 223.
God damn it!
I'm not disputing you beat Hillary Clinton.
That's a lot.
Listen, what I'm asking is you'll be the sitting president in the White House. What does that look like? Not accepting.
I'll tell you what it looks like.
Are you litigating?
Let me tell you what it looks like. Okay. So we have a new phenomena. It's called mail-in voting.
Phenomenon.
It's been here since the Civil War.
In terms of the kind of millions and millions of ballots, they've never.
It'll be bigger this year because of the pandemic.
Bigger, not bigger, massively bigger.
Yeah, because of the pandemic.
So they're going to send tens of millions of ballots to California, all over the place. Who's going to get them?
Okay, so, to be honest, I got my mail-in ballot actually not too long ago because California does this thing where they actually prefer mail-in voting. Kind of easy, a lot easier. So I mean, that is one good thing about California. They mail out your ballot. They try to make it as easy as possible, right? And then some states just require you to use an absentee ballot. this whole idea that somehow this is just going to be a disaster just because it's a higher number. It's like it's a greater scale of mail-in ballots. Doesn't mean that it's something that we need to try to undermine during a global pandemic where we know the risk of pushing in-person voting is far more dangerous, especially whenever you, sir, are in hot water because of your failure to manage COVID-19 and the total number of COVID-19 related deaths. Mail-in voting? It's kind of cute. Yeah. You know? She wrote books, means I have to read and God forbid, comprehend. Did you write in Bernie or Harambe for Prez? I haven't filled out my ballot yet. I just received it. What's going on, Slaughter Otter? Hold on. Okay. Sorry, this has been wild.
I have a friend lives in Westchester County.
They send applications, not that.
His son passed away. He had a beautiful, wonderful son, young man, passed away 7 years ago. He called me. He said, "I just got a ballot
Probably an
for my
application.
son Robert.
Probably
He died 7 years ago. Somebody got a ballot for a dog. Somebody got a ballot for something else. You got millions of ballots going. Nobody even knows where they're going. You look at some of the corruption having to do with universal mail-in voting. Absentee voting is okay. You have to apply. You have to go through a process.
You have to apply for mail-in.
Absentee
It's the
voting
same
is
thing.
good. Look,
Let's do concrete. Let's do concrete.
Jonathan, they're sending out
Applications.
governors
Download them off.
millions of ballots.
No, they're not.
There
It's
is-
applications. You can get them
There
off the
is
internet.
no way you can go through a mail-in vote without massive cheating.
I honestly don't understand this topic with
Go
you.
ahead.
How?
The Republican Party has an extremely well-funded vote-by-mail program. Your campaign puts out emails telling people to vote by mail.
Correct.
Your daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, she did robocalls in California saying it's safe and secure, mail-in voting.
Let me tell you.
The Republican
we have
won.
no choice.
That was an all-mail-in race.
Let me tell you. You ready?
Yeah.
We have no choice because right now we have many court cases that we're waiting. We have one filed in Western Pennsylvania. We have many court cases where we're trying to end it. We went through World War I, you went to the polls, you voted. We went through World War II, you went to the polls, you
We've had
voted.
mail-in voting
and
since
now,
the Civil
because
War.
of the China virus, we're supposed to stay home, send millions of ballots all over the country, millions and millions. You know, you could have a case where this election won't be decided on the evening of November 3rd.
Absolutely.
This election could
What's
be
wrong with that?
decided 2 months later.
It won't be 2 months. But what's wrong with the proper
It could
mailing
be
count?
decided many months later.
Have you discussed
You know
with-
why? Because lots of things will happen during that period of time, especially when you have tight margins. Lots of things can happen. There's never been anything like this when you try. Now, of course, right now we have to live with it, but we're challenging it in many courts,
You're
as
gonna
you know,
litigate.
all over the country.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell,
I gotta tell you, I'm kind of disappointed in this interview in failing to push back harder against the true hoax regarding mail-in ballots. The number, child, we've looked at these numbers before. The cases of voter fraud that have been reported and recorded by the Heritage Foundation, the Koch-funded operation that kind of tracks voter fraud, indicates that the most cases of voter fraud are from convicted felons who didn't know that they were no longer eligible for voting, or somebody who has recently moved and they might be registered in 2 states. So if they moved from one state, they were still registered, they registered in a new state, and maybe it's the technicality that they are registered in both states, and that can send a red flag. The fact of the matter is that we see higher cases of election fraud than voter fraud, meaning that public officials or somebody else, a third party, will take an existing ballot, make changes to the ballot, and then will have those new votes counted that after they've been tampered with. Interestingly enough, election fraud happens more so within the Republican Party. over the past couple years. The most recent example of election fraud happened in West Virginia, actually. So the facts of the matter is that we do not have any issues. We don't have any true, like, long-standing or historical issues with vote by mail fraud. It's pretty much noted that it's a mistake, and not a lot of people are trying to commit voter fraud at all. If anything, this is just a voter suppression tactic that Donald Trump is employing, because if there's a way to safely vote without using the run-of-the-mill typical voter suppression tactics, like last-minute shutdown in-person polling locations, or other forms of voter suppression, long lines, long waits, closing the doors after a certain amount of time, all of these things do help to hinder the vote of, an area. So what would happen if there were literally no barriers to allow somebody who is registered to vote the opportunity to vote? That could be really bad for, the Republican Party, who tends to use these voter suppression tactics to remain in their positions of power. What's going on, Clear Joker? How you doing? I just, some pushback would have been nice. They throw out votes. What do you mean they throw out votes? Election officials? Like garbage. So election fraud could be in the form of throwing out votes. They'll just discount them to skew the results, right? They literally throw out votes to sway elections. I see what you're saying. Well, maybe that means that instead of forcing people to vote in person on site, there should be some sort of oversight committee or process that is nonpartisan, that is completely third party, to observe the tallying of the absentee ballots. If we're worried about election fraud, then I can't see how we can't find some way to ensure that all votes are counted. All right, so that's really scary to hear that we are now entering the unhinged part of this interview. Okay.
Has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that.
With the country so divided, I doubt there are many truly neutral parties left. I mean, what do you have to be? I mean, I understand that right now we are incredibly divided, but I can't imagine not having the ability to bring in a third-party observer, or offer some sort of transparency. I hate surveillance, so I don't want to go down that route, but I mean, I find it really hard to believe that there's no way to achieve some sort of oversight in the process of counting these votes, counting these ballots, that would ensure that every single vote is counted and tallied appropriately. Has anyone mentioned his tan line yet? Well, technically, I did bring up in the beginning of this interview that he was looking a little more orange than usual, but that's it. Rewind 20 seconds so you can get this part fully when ready. Play that back. Okay.
Right now, we have to live with it, but we're challenging it in many courts.
You're going to litigate
all over the country.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a
Well, first
person
of all,
well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
She has. She's been arrested for that. You know
her
that.
friend or boyfriend
Epstein.
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that
Oh,
she's
so you're
guilty?
saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
I mean,
they
she's
made
a
it
child
such,
alleged child
such
sex
a
trafficker.
big deal. But
Damn,
all it
way to
is her
let the people
boyfriend
know where your
He died in
alliance
jail.
lie.
Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
Let's move to Portland. I'm sure you've seen the disturbing footage
Oh.
of people in fatigues beating the
No,
Navy veteran.
No.
Well,
Here you go.
it's there.
The fake news.
It's not fake news. It's on video.
For
Pepper spraying
59
him.
days, these people
I'm not
were
looking bad for
anarchists and
anything.
agitators and some protesters, but these were anarchists. These
That's okay. I'm not surprised at all with his words or his well-intentioned wishes, well-intentioned for Ghislaine Maxwell, because think about all the dirt that this bitch has on him. All right? If anything, he knows not to, say anything that could lead her to feel like they're not on the same side. He's letting her know that his allegiance is with her, and that is incredibly telling because it just kind of goes to show that Ghislaine Maxwell has dirt on this motherfucker. All right, let's move on to Portland. Let's hear about those professional anarchists.
people were beating the hell out of the city. They were beating up our federal buildings and our federal courthouse. We told the police to stop it. You make sure. And the police wouldn't do it. Not the police.
Your own Justice Department and Homeland Security inspectors generals.
Excuse me.
Your inspector generals are
Excuse
investigating
me.
unconstitutional.
You're trying now to blame law enforcement instead of anarchists.
I'm
instead
not.
of Antifa.
I'm not.
It's Antifa and anarchists that are causing the problems, not
Oh my
law
God.
enforcement. Our law enforcement, if we didn't have people at our courthouse, and they're strong, tough people, and they don't want, they try and be very good, believe me. But if we didn't have people there, you would have your federal courthouse, $600 million building, you would have that thing burned to the ground.
I'm asking you about tactics and about the
Ugh,
unmarked
the real estate
vans.
mogul only cares about the property value of a building. I mean, obviously, that is going to be what is of interest to him. He wants to make sure that $600 million building doesn't fall down by a professional anarchist. Like, what is he even saying? What is he even saying? I'm sorry. I kind of got lost in the sauce for a second. How much lives is 6 million worth? Building lives matter? I mean, it's just crazy to hear like the way that he will play into the sensibilities of the, the fuckheads. I mean, the fact of the matter is that this kind of chicanery where emphasis to protect the buildings takes precedent over an emphasis to protect those who are victims of a system of oppression that leads to them being disproportionately killed. Just goes to show. It goes to show just how far gone conservatives and Republicans alike truly are. Truly. The fact that, and this shouldn't be any surprise because this bonehead recently tweeted out that he was doing the suburbanites a favor by rolling back those HUD regulations to affirmatively further fair housing, right? That would not lead to suburbanites property values going down by bringing in like multifamily housing. So of course, like he is going to be in the business of upholding the interests of property values in a city. He's not going to want to have to deal with the loss from a $6 million building, of course. And it just goes to show that that's where his priorities do lie. Capital supersedes labor, so buildings over people. That's right, Nanta. There you go. You love to see it. You love to see it.
where they're rounding people up. And I
Okay,
want to.
let me tell you
Can I
about
just finish my
Unmarked.
question?
Well, let me tell you about
Could I just
Unmarked.
finish my question because it relates to this? I promise. This is from Rand Paul. Quote, "We cannot give up liberty for security. Local law enforcement can and should be handling these situations in our cities, but there is no place for federal troops or unidentified federal agents rounding people up at will." What is your response to Senator Paul?
First of all, these are Homeland Security people. They're securing a courthouse.
They're Border Patrol.
They're Homeland Security.
Elite units.
Border. Hopefully they have
Camo,
ICE in there.
gas
Hopefully they have
masks.
ICE. Now, do you know why they're unmarked? Because
Why?
these terrorists, these Antifa people, these people that are anarchists and agitators, when they see the name on a uniform of a person, a policeman or law enforcement person, they find out where that person lives. And then they go and they scare the hell out of the person's family. And so they
that
do
how
it
it
for
works?
that reason. It's just common sense. There's nothing secret about this. And you know it. You see it, what's going on right now. We have Chad Wolf. They have people. He's doing a fantastic job. He's the acting head. He's doing a fantastic job.
First off, that's not even true because the majority of police officers right now who are on the field or there to de-escalate the protests are covering their name badges. So there's actually no way to even identify them. That's like one of the most prominent findings is that police officers are protecting their badge number, and their last name. He also admitted they were unmarked. True. And the fact, really, where is this information? Where is this information where, Antifa and professional anarchists are going around and making it their business to, I think that some far-right fascist police officers who should not be occupying this position of power have been doxxed. But that's not a common occurrence. It's not like it's happening on a regular basis. The propagandizing that we see from the Trump administration that does stoke fear in so many people to justify the existence of a super secret DHS-backed operation to end the protests, right? Good night, Nunta. I do find it hard to believe that he admitted that these cops are unidentified. Just don't be a cop. I mean, no problem. A lot of people are saying that MC3 is Putin in disguise. You heard it here first. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what Trump says. I mean, this is his way of communicating and trying to pass off false flags, false narratives, and completely made up shit as legit. A lot of people are saying this. A lot of people are saying that. Hey, what's going on, Sue Witherwood?
Chad Wolf has pickets out, very dangerous looking people outside of his house. He's going to be just fine. He's tough and he's got people. But if you have the names on all of these uniforms, you'll have these maniacs in front of their houses scaring their family and their wives or husbands, whatever it may be. I think it's a very good reason not to have your name. Why should you have identification? My name is Bill Smith, and here's where I live, and I'm a member of...
The really serious concern is
No,
the
that's
reports. Not about
that's a
that.
serious
The serious
concern.
concern is the reports of people being rounded up and not being told why they're being detained. That's what's being investigated
Why?
by Mr. President.
Why
The
they're
inspectors
being
generals.
detained?
The inspectors
You know
generals.
why? You know why they're being detained? Well, yeah.
There's an investigation. Do you support that investigation?
Well, I haven't seen the result yet.
But do you
Let me see
support the
result.
initiative of it?
No, I think that actually
You don't?
I think Antifa should be investigated, not the law enforcement. They're investigating.
They shouldn't be investigating.
Have you been watching television?
I have.
Have you been seeing the violence? And
Sure.
Now, if you watch NBC News, like I watch NBC fake news, I'm watching it, Lester Holt, real beauty, and I'm watching this NBC News sham, and you have a mayor named Wheeler, and he's standing out there, and he's being accosted by the people. You know that. It's horrible what they're doing to him. Portland, the mayor of Portland. And he thought he'd go out, he'd be a... What they were doing and saying and everything else to him, I happened to watch it on a different station. He had to get out. He had 5 security guards. He got out with his life. Okay.
Mr. President.
If you watch NBC News, they make him like he's standing there bravely fighting with the people in a positive sense, that everything is wonderful. No. He went out there.
Notice how he's not admitting their blocking badge numbers also, because he can't justify that. Exactly. That doesn't fit with the narrative. Why would he bring it up? He knows when to and when not to say shit that will implicate him. Look, he's excellent at self-promotion. He's excellent at making himself seem and look better. That's his one strong suit. That's his one strong suit. Said he's not going to say anything to further incriminate himself if he can see a trap. If he can see a trap 3 seconds before he walks into it. Now, it doesn't work for him all the time because he's not smart enough to see all of the traps. But I think that, he probably sits down with like a team of people and they try to go over like things to try to shy away from and things to not bring up. One of those things being the fact that most police officers have covered their badges, and that's a well-known fact. That is a well-known fact. All right? It's not a well-known fact that people are going around doxing police officers. Obviously, because you don't know how to identify them because they're covering up their badge numbers. Jesus.
With his life because they would have killed him. He had 5 guards, but NBC News showed it like he's standing with the people for justice. Look, those people, take a look at what they've done to the courthouse. Take a look at what they've done to the streets. Take a look at the violence.
It's getting worse since they've gone in. It's getting worse.
It's getting better. We've arrested a lot of people, and we now have a 10-year rule. You try and knock down our courthouse.
More businesses damaged, more violence.
You touch our courthouse, you go to jail for 10 years.
Turning to the rest of the country. We haven't seen protests like this.
Meanwhile, we forget that the whole reason why these protests started is because there is an issue with the police forces protecting their own whenever they fuck up and they act with impunity and they kill somebody on the street and then they don't even get so much as a slap on the wrist and then the DA covers up their records and then they go on and the cycle repeats itself. And so the whole reason why we're here right now is because cops get to murder people and then walk away scot-free. Meanwhile, those who are protesting the police injustice, brutality, and the murderous behavior of cops can potentially go to jail for 10 years if they dare to destroy property. Right? Funny how that works. But Hillary would have given us more female prison guards. Danny did mention this, that one of the most prominent responsibilities of police is to protect property. To protect the sanctity of a white man's property. That has been a well-known fact for quite a long time. So again, we are just seeing the same principles being applied to a greater scale, where property is still the number one priority in this scenario. What was anyone done to a courthouse? I actually haven't seen any vandalism yet. I think the courthouse in Portland got kind of fucked up, right? They spray painted it with graffiti. Okay, I stand corrected. That's not really fucked up. You can get rid of that. There's like structural, if no like damages to the structural integrity of the building, then like it's fine, right? Fuck, what, graffiti's nothing. You can get rid of that shit pretty easy. Power wash that shit. The graffiti makes it looks better.
Since the 60s. I mean, we're seeing...
These are Democrat
if I can finish my question.
cities.
If I can finish my question.
And they're doing it for political reasons.
You said you've done so much...
Violence against property instigates violence? Wait, do you mean instant... What do you mean INST? What does that mean?
African Americans.
Isn't violence. Okay. That's right. No, it's okay. I thought that you were just trying to like shorthand instigate. I was like, wait a minute. I shouldn't make that assumption. So you are correct. Violence against property is not violence. Defacing property or, slightly vandalizing property without doing structural damage or damaging the facade of a building doesn't necessarily seem like it's worthy of a 10-year prison sentence. But who am I? I'm just trying to not be a fucking monster over here.
There are Americans.
Justice
Yeah, I understand.
reform, opportunity.
But let me finish. There are Americans out in the streets asking for change. Mr. President, have you ever met with a Black Lives Matter activist to hear them out, hear their arguments?
Well, Black Lives Matter started off, to me, very badly because it was...
Did you ever meet with one?
Pigs in a blanket, burn them like bacon. That was the first time I ever heard of black... That was 3-4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Pigs, meaning policemen. Pigs is what they're referring to, in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I thought it was, so I got off to a bad start. I got off to a very bad start.
Would you meet with a Black Lives Matter activist?
I would, but I think right now when they paint,
Why haven't you?
When they paint the sign, nobody's asked for a meeting, right? Nobody's ever asked me for a meeting. Let me tell you, with African Americans, I'm doing very well. They had the best employment numbers they've ever had. They had the best job numbers they've ever had. They were making more money than they ever made. We were all set until we got hit by China with the virus. Jonathan, we were becoming a very unified country.
Do you believe
because of success?
I understand. Do you believe, though, Mr. President, that many police treat black people differently from white people?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. Certainly
You've seen the statistics.
The knee on the neck was a disgrace, okay?
Yeah.
It was a disgrace.
I'm talking about, what does systemic racism mean to you?
I hope the answer to that question is no. Does anybody really answer that question accurately?
But what about not hope?
Really know?
What about analysis? What's your cold-hearted
I have
view
seen where there is a difference, and I don't want there to be a difference. I don't like that there would be a difference. But with that being said,
why do you think black men are
police
2.5
have
times?
killed white people.
I know, but why do you think black
in
men
a larger number
in quantity?
Police have killed white people.
But why do you think black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than white?
That I don't know, but
Why? Why do you
I
think
don't like it.
But you must have thought
Why?
about it.
I don't know why, but I don't like it. I do know that.
Does it speak to something
police
systemic?
have killed many white people also.
But proportionally, what does it speak to?
It speaks to something, if
chud.
that's the number. You're telling
It is the
me a
number.
number. Okay, if that's the number, it speaks to something that to me is unacceptable.
And what do you do about it then?
The fact that you are the president during the Black Lives Matter protests and you do not know, like, these statistics have not somehow made it to your desk either. That the reason why there are people marching in the street right now is that there's very clear evidence indicating that proportionately black men are killed far more than white men. All right? And that's just a very well-known fact. And the fact that, again, Trump's acting like maybe he hasn't. Maybe he has never seen these statistics ever. But it's the fact that he doesn't even know the root cause, the systemic issues related to the direct action we're seeing right now, the protests that are forming right now. He doesn't know that this is the reason, and instead he is more so interested in finding a way to punish anyone who does damage property during the Black Lives Matter protests. Really, again, tells you where his priorities are. His handlers won't give him the info anyway. But white people also get killed is not a good defense. No, it's not. Never is. Never is, to be honest. No president should say, I don't know, in an interview. Well, again, it goes to show that Donald Trump is not in the business of outright implicating himself, but also he just does not know. He does not know some shit that he should know. The fact that he doesn't know the root cause, the systemic issues, the systems of oppression that Black Lives Matter activists are trying to bring to mainstream media, to bring to social media, to bring to the forefront of the conversations right now that we're having. It goes to show that he might not be so interested to understand the plight of that African Americans are faced, that African Americans face in this country. Kayleigh McEnany knows. The press secretary knows, but not Trump? Okay. Maybe. Is it worse to say, I don't know, or is it bullshit as it is that he does know? Do you think that he's just trying to play dumb? She is the same age as you? Who? Who, Kayleigh McEnany? I'd say that it's probably him not trying to implicate himself because he doesn't know, because he hasn't taken an interest in knowing. I think that more so than anything else, that he doesn't care to know. He doesn't care to know. It doesn't fit his agenda. It's not something that he thinks is important. And I'd say that it's probably not him. It's probably him not wanting to admit that he does not give a shit. Kayleigh is a nasty B word, and I find that kind of hot. Where's Mesh? Kayleigh is amazing. Pixel Cooker, thank you so much for gifting a tier 172. Not the Wolverine, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ever since who was it, like mashed tomatoes? Mashed tomatoes? Said that she looks like sexy Kermit. Rent destroyed me this month, so I couldn't. No, don't even worry about it. Listen. Let me just tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. This is going to be a hard next couple months. All right. Don't you even worry about it. You got to take care of yourself first. Please don't spare yourself then financially. You're always welcome here. You don't have to sub. We just want to try to keep ourselves afloat right now, be a support group to one another. So do not feel bad. Please do not feel bad right now. All right. All right, let's get back to this asshole.
Well, I think we've already done a lot of
But you
things.
haven't, it still exists.
Let me just tell you.
No. I understand your achievements. I know what you're going to say. I'm not suggesting you haven't done a lot
I've done
economically.
a thing called criminal justice
I get it.
reform.
I'm just saying what
that your
changes.
friend President Obama couldn't
It's
get
not my
done.
friend.
He
I'm
tried,
asking about that
he
statistic.
tried, but he couldn't get it done. I got criminal justice.
I get it.
I got opportunity zones. I took care of the historically black. You know, if you look at what I've done for colleges, for black colleges and universities, I got them funding. Obama never did it. I did more for the black community than anybody, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. Whether you like it or not, people say, "Oh, that's
You really you believe you did more than Lyndon Johnson, who passed the Civil Rights Act?
I think I did, yeah.
How?
Because I
How
got criminal
possibly did you
justice reform done. I got prison reform.
Lyndon Johnson.
I've done things.
He passed the Civil Rights Act.
How has it worked out? If you take a look at what Lyndon Johnson did.
You think the Civil Rights Act was a mistake?
How has it worked out? Because frankly, it took a long time. But for African Americans,
but you think that was a mistake?
Administration, Jonathan, under my administration, African Americans were doing better than they had ever done in the history of this country. So I did a lot. Job numbers, all of the money, they had money, they were getting great. Their percentage was up, their housing ownership was up. They did better than they've ever done until we got hit. And now, you know what we're doing? I'm building it up again. We're going to have it. Next year will be a great year, unless it's screwed up by somebody that doesn't know what he's doing, which could happen, but I don't think it will.
John Lewis is lying in state in the US Capitol. How do you think history will remember John Lewis?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know John Lewis. He chose not to come to my inauguration.
Oh my God. Oh my God. John Lewis did not come to my birthday party or wish me happy birthday, so I did not go to his funeral. That's how it works. We all know that. You know? What a petty person. Like, petulance. The petulance. Oh, I don't understand how it could get any worse.
I never met John Lewis, actually. I don't believe.
Do you find him impressive?
I can't say one way or the other. I find a lot of people impressive. I find many people not impressive. But no, but I didn't go.
Do you find his story impressive?
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches. And that's okay. That's his right. And
Oh my God.
again, nobody has done more
Right.
for
But back
black
to-
Americans than I have.
I understand.
He should have come.
But
I
back-
think he made a
Okay,
big
like
mistake. I think he
okay, like honestly, the fact that we just got through a very awkward engagement between these two, where the interviewer had to push back on his claim that, are you sure that you have done more for the black community than Lyndon B. Johnson, who passed the Civil Rights Act? Just for him to follow up and say, not acknowledge that the reason as to why John Lewis never attended his inauguration or State of the Union State of the Union addresses, because he was an avid civil rights activist and was vehemently against Donald Trump's policy, just to follow back up with, I did more for the African American community than anyone else. I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine like the suspended disbelief that you would have to be in to just get out of the hot water with an interviewer who brought it to your attention that perhaps you have not done more for the black community than the person who passed the civil rights bill, just to follow back up with it, completely missed the mark with the fact that a very well-known, renowned civil rights activist has failed to show up to any of your ceremonial things, and just to try to coax your own ego with the fact that it can't be me for the reason why John Lewis never showed up to any of my ceremonies, because I've done more for the I can't mentally 12-year-old trapped into, I mean, I just can't imagine, like, it's cognitive dissonance. It is, yeah, I guess that's right. It is cognitive dissonance. I mean, it's infuriating.
Taking your relationship with him out of it, do you find his story impressive, what he's done for this country?
He was a person that devoted a lot of energy and a lot of heart to civil rights, but there were many others also.
There's a petition to rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama as the John Lewis Bridge. Would you support that idea?
I would have no objection to it if
Yeah.
they'd like to do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Would have no objection to it whatsoever.
Mr. President, you've been so generous with your time, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Great honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that was awful. That was just absolutely terrifying. What are you thinking? That's what a leftist gets for going in alone, for doing it alone. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to kind of see this, because obviously Trump is the reflection of all of the United States, even though, like, you know, we're past the point where we have to make sure, you know, we don't necessarily have those ties, but I mean, the residual embarrassment that is felt from anyone outside of the United States watching this interview, seeing truly how big of a fucking idiot the president is, and then just thinking about how it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch. It's unsettling. It's kind of unsettling. This is pretty good short analysis of that interview. Absolutely not. I'm not falling for it. That man represents me on the world stage. No, that's not necessarily what I mean. I think that Donald Trump is just, what I mean to say is that I think that Donald Trump is right now a reflection of American values. And it just goes to show like how dumb we are, how we are failing in every single way to address COVID-19. And then I think that he does represent the rugged individualism, the cognitive dissonance, as somebody brought up, the state of disillusionment that Americans oftentimes do live in without having an understanding of our own flaws and the grievances that so many other countries have with the United States. And that's more so, I guess that's like more so what I mean. I don't feel like I'm living vicariously through Donald Trump right now and he has to do everything possible to like, make me not feel ashamed to be an American, because that's like very liberal. That's a very short-lived take. But what I mean to say is that Donald Trump is a reflection of the the overall failures of the United States right now at present that we're living through. Like that's what I mean.